Do y'all ever visit the big house?
The big house is my parents' house. So not much. We haven't actually been over there in a while, probably like a couple years, other than once. Like to check
the mail.
Grab some mail or something.
2 years.
But yeah, there's like some restrictions.
Like the Bible says, like leave and cleave, and like kind of reevaluating things too. Definitely was not like a reactionary thing. I think some people might think, oh, it's like a reactionary thing or whatever. Definitely not. It was very much just like something that like we were just like reevaluating. And for me, like I felt like I could be modest and wear pants.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. How are you all doing today? Yesterday in my comments, I heard you loud and clear. You're all like, where's the stuff on the Duggars? So let's do a quick video about what's happening in the Duggar town related to Jill and her book and just some other details. So I have been covering the Duggars. If you're new here, I've been covering the Duggars since 2019 on this channel, and then before that I used to write about them when I was blogging back in the day. And today it's been a long time that we've covered this from all facets, from Josh's case, from the IBLP, from the reality show angle. There are so many things that draw people into this situation, and there's a lot that has to do with the whole train wreck idea that like things are combusting and so you can't look away, and then there's the constant back and forth between family members. There is the distressing things that we learn about Josh and the girls. There's all these different facets related to reality television and how Jim and Michelle basically exploited their family for money. And then there's the whole aspect of TLC controlling all facets of the family and putting kids into contracts without kids actually consenting. Jill actually accused her family at one point of forging her signature on contracts when she was a legal adult. Can you believe that? Yeah, it happened. Okay, so Jill was featured in that show that all of you have seen by now called Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets. The show was sort of I don't know, like I would call it like a medium dive, a surface level dive into the IBLP and briefly discuss the Duggars. Well, the Duggars storyline was very much interwoven into the Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets, and Jill was the showrunner as far as like the star. A lot of what it was about was the IBLP, and then Josh's case and her situation with filming were also covered. Now, once that show aired, obviously there was a lot of backlash from people that supported the Duggars. There was also a ton of people that were part of the IBLP, that grew up in purity culture, that grew up a part of this group, that felt like they had been seen for the very first time. And they felt like finally someone gets it. For whatever reason, and I don't know why, this was the first time there had ever been like a deep dive into this family. And you know what I find odd about all of this is throughout Josh's entire trial, there wasn't a single Dateline episode or like an episode of, you know, the morning, you know, like 2020 or prime time or whatever, like no episodes at all. Josh went to prison. Josh had a trial. This was a huge story. No hour-long documentaries, docuseries, nothing on Discovery, nothing on ID, nothing on Oxygen. I was shocked, frankly. And a lot of that has to do with probably the family not talking. But there's probably other things that contributed to it, like, I don't know, like, because the way this story played out, most of the players involved in the situation were either doing things to help Josh cover things up, or they didn't want to talk because of ongoing appeals. So Shiny Happy People was like literally the first dive into it. And I truly hope there would be some more exposés on the crime itself that Josh committed. This is just my personal ask of the media, because there was a huge miss, in my opinion, in Shiny Happy People, and it had to do with really glossing over the whole story about what Josh was doing and why he's in prison and what he was looking at. And this whole underbelly of society and this black market that is selling these kinds of videos of CSAM illegally, and no discussion about the children that are that are in these videos and how they're harmed by every single time they're shared and all the trafficking that goes along with it. And so my hope is that at some point that could be a focus, because it really speaks to a wider issue in society. And I think it's a big problem in the IBLP, just my opinion. So Jill Duggar was on this series, right? And then so once the series comes out, everyone was praising Jill for being brave. And what's really sort of strange to me is, like, in all of that, a lot of people were interviewed, you guys. Like the producers did a lot of interviews. We saw, some of the people in the series do interviews. Amy Duggar King has been on like every magazine that's offered her, an interview. And to her credit, I say good. Like, I'm proud of Amy for using her platform in that way. She's spoken to Access Hollywood. She's spoken to The Insider. She has spoken to, Vanity Fair. There's been a lot of good opportunities for her to help spread awareness about the show as well. But Jill and Derek didn't say anything, which I was like, well, that's strange. Now, Jill doesn't have she's very, I would say, shy, of the media because of what happened in 2015 with the release of records related to what happened with Josh to her as a child and that investigation. And so since that's happened, she's really been very disinterested in speaking directly in articles or with media, in media interviews. She did an interview like in 2020 or 2021 with People magazine, and that's really it. So it was generally very strange to me. I mean, I guess it's not strange, but it was interesting to me that given that she had the opportunity to do more interviews as a part of the series, she didn't. But she does have something that she's promoting, and that's her book. And so Jill has actually announced that her manuscript is all written and it's getting ready to go to press, I think. But she basically had to go through the final edits of her book, and she has been extremely emotional through this process. So she said this on her Instagram: "Things got real when I printed off the manuscript for my book, Counting the Cost. It was now one step closer to being out there. I cried and prayed over it. It's been an emotional journey, one that wasn't easy for me to write about. I hauled it around in this plastic baggie for a while, making final edits. My book, Counting the Costs, released September 12th. Pre-order now at Counting the Costs book or at my link in bio. And you can also get an autographed copy by going to Premier Collectibles. And yeah, she's got the link. And the book is through Gallery Books." She sort of walked around with the book in a bag. She's a busy mom, you guys. She's got 3 kids and she's got all boys, and they're very busy. And she's always at swimming lessons and doing all the mommy things. So she said that it was an emotional journey of her writing this book. Now, if you guys are wondering, we'll resurface and go back to and I just ordered the book, by the way, through Barnes and Noble. And I just want to remind you of what the book says it's going to be about, okay? So for the first time, discover the truth, the unedited truth about the Duggars, the traditional Christian family that captivated the nation on TLC's hit show 19 Kids and Counting. Jill Duggar and her husband Derek are finally ready to share their story, revealing the secrets, manipulation, intimidation behind the show that remained hidden from their fans. Jill and Derek knew a normal life wasn't possible for them. As a star on the popular TLC reality show 19 Kids and Counting, Jill grew up in front of viewers who were fascinated by her family's way of life. She was the responsible second daughter of Jim, Bob, and Michelle's 19 kids, always with the baby on her hip and happy to wear the modest ankle-length dresses and throat-high necklines. She didn't protest the strict model of patriarchy that her family followed, which declares that men are superior, that women are expected to be wives and mothers and are discouraged from attaining any higher education, and that parental authority over their children continues well into adulthood, even once they are married. But as Jill got older and married Derek, they embarked on their own lives, and the red flags became too obvious to ignore. For as long as she could, Jill and Derek tried to be obedient family members. They weren't willing to rock the boat, but now they're raising a family of their own, and they're done with the secrets. Thanks to time, tears, therapy, and blessings from God, they have the strength to share their journey. Theirs is a remarkable story of the power of truth and is a moving example of how to find their healing through honesty. So the book is set to come out on September 12th, and it says that it has 288 pages, so it's not going to be a super long read. If you're like a deep reader and you don't want to read a 1,000-page book, this book will probably be something that you can fly through. I would probably be able to finish this in a day. It'll be available on Amazon for Kindle, and it's also available to purchase through Barnes & Noble, Bookshop, BAM. You can get an autographed copy from her through Premiere, and it's available on Audible if you're an Audible subscriber. So I just ordered the book today through Amazon, and because the last time when I just ordered the book today through Barnes & Noble's, and the reason why is because the last time I ordered a book through Amazon for a pre-order was Ginger's book, it took them a super long time to get me the book, and the last time they released a book through Barnes & Noble, people were getting that book on time, so I decided to go with Barnes & Noble. No shade to Amazon because I will 100% still get it on my Audible. So Jill's book is going to be talking about sort of this, what it's like to be on reality television and all of the different threats and intimidation that she went through when she was on the show, and then what it took for them to not only like cut away from the show, but also cut away from the strict patriarchal beliefs of her family and that dictatorship that is her father. Now, I think what I want to be very clear about is that anytime a parent in this situation is given the control of of the child via a contract with a network, they have a very unhealthy power dynamic with their child, because not only are they their child's parent, but then they also become sort of like this employee. They develop like an employee-employer relationship with their kid. And so the demands from the parent are not just about being a good daughter, but also you have to like do your commitments to work. And with narcissists like Jim Bob Duggar, he's going to use that to his advantage. And if you heard anything about Shiny Happy People, Jill say is that he wanted to have control of his kids for the rest of their lives in the media. Like, in order for her to get paid, he said, well, you need to sign this contract, and if you don't sign it, you don't get money, and if you do sign it, I control all your media for the rest of life. Like, it's a lifetime contract with his production company. Once the show came out, James Duggar deleted every video on his YouTube, and I want to note that Jed Duggar hasn't put out a video in over a month. And then there's also like just been questions about, okay, so if the Duggars are controlling all these different social medias, is that why suddenly Jessa is no longer posting on her social media? Is that why Jessa has basically abandoned her YouTube channel? You know, there's been a lot of questions about why these kids who have built such large followings would suddenly abandon it once Jill comes out and basically says, like, our dad is controlling these, right? Well, maybe they don't want their dad to have the money. Maybe they have, you know, egg on their face. Maybe they feel like they're exposed now. Maybe Jim Bob wants to try to prove them wrong. I don't know. So what are you going to expect to get exposed in this book? Well, first off, I think Jill is doing this not to be condemning of her parents. I think she really just wants to be showing sort of the challenges of vacuum that she lived in growing up. I recall a couple years ago when I actually did an interview with Derek Dillard, one of his biggest complaints about reality television was the exploitation of children, and how he felt that TLC was exploitative. So he told me that he had felt that TLC was putting children into contracts with their families or whatever, and basically exploiting these children's lives without any sort of understanding of what that exploitation does to the child, without protections for the children, without safeguards in place, without trust funds for the kids, without any legal unions to represent them, without anything, because TLC lives in a world where it's cheap to make reality television. There are no unions for reality TV stars. There's no SAG for kids in reality television. Kids are not represented by anyone. In the state of Arkansas, they don't even have to pull permits. And the state of Arkansas, they're not required to have trust funds. And whereas Kate Gosselin's kids had advocates for them pushing for her to set up a trust fund and like basically saying you need to set aside money for your kids, there was no one on the Duggars side of things that was pushing back on their clear exploitation of the kids and the fact that the kids were working for years and never got paid. What we're seeing now is this exodus, because all of these kids that were made famous through the reality television, through the Learning Channel, are growing up and becoming adults and really beginning to grapple with this whole understanding as they become parents about what exploitation is and how exploitative it is for a parent to use their child for monetary purposes and to exploit even basic things in life. And if you think about the Duggars, you have to remember everything is scripted on these shows. It's a docudrama where producers come in and they already have things planned ahead of time, and they're basically just participating in activities as though they're there as humans because that's who they are. But they have a storyline they're following as they're making each episode. And so nothing's real. So they are working, but they're not getting paid because their dad is greedy and he's not paying them. And TLC will take all these different steps to not pay because they'll say it's the parent's responsibility. Every single loophole that a network can take, I tell you, they will take it. If someone asks me, would you ever be on reality TV? I say no. If someone asks me, should I be on reality television? I will say no. There is no more exploitative industry than reality television, period. This industry has no regulations, and it's going to use people and exploit them that are easily vulnerable to being promised fame and fortune. With that said, I expect Jill's book to include details about all the things she talked about on Shiny Happy People, but also more into a lot of the stories she's already shared about the lack of control that she and Derek had in their own lives, having to give up dreams for themselves, the fights that she had with her dad about getting paid, the issues that she had with, the release of records. I don't know if she'll talk about that, but maybe. The whole fallout of leaving the show, walking away from the IBLP. There's a lot, but I think a lot of this is going to be focused on reality television because the Duggars do live in a dual world where they, yes, were in a cult, but they were also on reality television. And so there's two traumas that are happening to those children. One, they're growing up in an abusive cult, and two, they're being exploited financially and looked as a commodity by a network and by their parents. And that's a lot to unpack. So, and it's hard to unpack that in 288 pages. So, I hope I'm encouraged by the fact that she promises to be real and raw and vulnerable and share the unedited truth about her life. That's hard and that's difficult, and I'm sure it's very taxing for her, and I'm sure it's been very emotional. And I don't know if she'll be doing interviews after she writes the book. I hope she does. I hope she can share a little bit more in, verbal communication through interviews, but we'll see. So September 12th is when the book drops, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.